All right, guys, let's get right into it. It's presidential debate time. That's it. That's that's what we're getting into. It's gonna be a train wreck. I already know it. Let's see what we got here. Let's just start it up. I know I'm a little late to the party, but you know what?
Good
It
evening,
is
I'm
what it
David
is.
Bjorn. Thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
Unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the
It's crazy because this is going to be so entertaining, and that's just so not good for the country. Politics should be boring.
most consequential event of their campaigns with Election Day
This
now
is
less
so
than
bad.
2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and
I wonder if I went on Twitter right now, if everybody would be saying, oh, they were treated Trump so unfairly, blah, 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 which is just, to me, a communication that, like, oh, Trump got blasted.
1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate...
That's a good thing. I mean, it's so funny because I remember Trump criticized when he was running for president the first time. There was like other candidates, Republican candidates, were getting a lot of cheers, and he had said something which was kind of made sense. Is that like the people that are there are stacked. The audience there is stacked for particular people to make them appear to be better, right? Like if you have an audience of people clapping and cheering, it's going to make you more likely at home to be like, oh, okay, like that must be a good person. So yeah, it's a good thing that they don't have an audience there.
setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris elected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald
Does a choice of podium matter?
Trump.
This is so awkward.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
I like how she went for the handshake and he wasn't going to go for it.
Thank you.
My flies
Welcome
open.
to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking
So
forward to
awkward.
a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country.
Yeah, brutal stuff, man. I mean, inflation has been down, but it's still rough, man. We are helping 2 of our allies in a war, and I generally agree with that. But it's pretty tough. I feel like a lot of it's housing, though. I feel like if we could figure out housing, we'd have a lot more. It would be a lot easier to deal with this problem. Housing prices are very expensive. Part of it is that houses are so much bigger now than they used to be. Like, legitimately, you could look that up, and it is a factor. But then part of it is just like how expensive, unnecessarily expensive housing costs are. It's just unreasonable. I don't know how you would balance that out. I mean, outside of having the government, renting houses out to people for a more affordable price, which could compete with the market and make the, other people who independently own reduce their costs. But I don't even know if that would go necessarily well. I mean, I don't know.
Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Well, yeah, we had COVID, but even like the economy question is an interesting one. Obviously, COVID was brutal. Trump could have mitigated COVID better, but it would never have been perfect. But the thing is that what did we have when we had Trump? Trump cut a bunch of taxes, mostly for rich people permanently, and then for us, it was temporary, and it massively inflated the annual federal deficit by like $400 billion a year before COVID. And so like it was nice that people have more money in their pockets, but at the end of the day, it wasn't sustainable. It was like going to the bank and taking $100K out and said that you say, oh, I just got made $100,000. Like, of course not. Everybody wants lower taxes, but you need to be more reasonable about it. And we have to pay off our expenses. Under Obama, we had a drastically reduced annual federal deficit from what he inherited, like 1.4 trillion, or was it 1.2? But either way, it was down to about 650 billion. I'll say Biden's not doing great when it comes to our deficit. I'm not going to lie. But generally speaking, Republicans seem to inflate the deficit, and Democrats, modern, seem to reduce it outside of Biden.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
Ugh,
And I am actually
we're going to get a whole story.
only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I
I wish they would just be like, oh, this is what I want to do. instead of hyping it up.
Call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing.
Okay, what
we
does that
know
mean?
that we have a shortage of homes and housing.
Sure,
and the
yeah.
cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people.
Far
We
too
know
many
that
people,
young
yeah.
families need support
Sure.
to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long
I watched a video about how like overall her tax cuts are going to be better. It's going to actually be less money for people who have like in a 4-family household, 2 kids, mom or 2 partner, whatever, fucking spouses and 2 kids. It'll be the cheapest for you, but I don't know about single class people. Here's my problem. I'm all down for tax cuts and everything, but I feel like tax cuts don't like lower the prices of housing, right? You have a tax cut, if anything. Ooh, sorry about that whistle. The housing market might potentially go like, oh, there's more money in the market. Let's raise the cost. So to me, unless you create a direct competitor of like honestly free, like how not free housing, but like rent controlled government owned housing, I don't see how you'd have a direct comparison, because that's the conversation about Medicare for all. It's like, hey, what if the government had a healthcare option that they were able to set their own like prices for? Maybe it would be slower, maybe it would be this or that, but that adds a new competitor into the market. And so let's say we get all opt into it, maybe for an increased price, depending on how much you make. That means that private healthcare companies have to lower their costs or else they're going to get phased out. If you just add a general public subsidy, or basically a subsidy, tax cuts, I don't think that that's necessarily going to be super effective. I mean, we look at those student loans kind of, but when it comes to schooling is so expensive, even community colleges. And my understanding is like a third is paid by the depending on your college, but let's say you go to a community college, a third's paid by the federal government, a third's paid by the state government, and then a third's paid by you. And so these industries, these schools are able to charge as much as they really want, and they know since there's subsidies, they're gonna be like, well, they can technically afford it. We're gonna charge $5,000 for them, but we're gonna get 15, right? That just inflates the cost by just constantly being, okay, we're just gonna subsidize it. I'm not saying don't subsidize it. What I'm saying is like, what if we said, hey, we'll subsidize it, but only if you keep it in a certain level? Because again, my understanding is a lot of this is administrative costs, right? So if you're like, hey, if you have this much as an administrative cost, we're just not going to give you subsidies. So you can do whatever you want, but then they're going to go, oh shit, we have to lower our price. We're going to have to figure out a way, because these administrators really don't do anything other than try to like recruit and all this other bullshit that doesn't help the student or teacher experience. So it's like, I feel like we need to start being a little better about the way that we decide to implement some kind of cut for some kind of thing that prevents the market from being able to react and go, let's just raise a price. But again, I'm down. The tax cuts are nice though. Thank you for $5 from James. Really wish that was you on stage. Also still going to write you in Master of the God. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat.
Oh,
buy
she
clothes
means
for
a
their
house.
children.
That's just her black coming out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. That was a little inappropriate.
My passion, one of them, is small businesses.
Jerking off.
My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is
fair.
to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses.
That's a great idea. I like the idea of incentivizing small business. Right now, we're seeing everything shift online, and it's less expensive for us. Amazon's obviously less expensive, but the more we utilize Amazon and we rely on Amazon, the more that money's just going to this like huge company that pays like no federal taxes. It's just fucking ridiculous. And the more of a monopoly that we're creating. Incentivizing small businesses, and this is, I think is a positive thing. It keeps the money in your community. Usually a small business lives in the community. So you're spending money into the community. Those people are hiring people in that community. And then those workers are staying in the community. Everything's happening inside of the community instead of it all getting centralized to like some place in another fucking state that has like no taxes, right? So I like the idea of small businesses. I like it personally.
Knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations,
true.
which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan
That's probably true.
I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. And $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
What is that? Is you want to implement like a flat tax or something?
Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying.
Oh, I think okay, so I believe he's talking about he has, I think, and I could be wrong, he's talking about implementing tariffs onto a lot of goods that are coming from other countries, which is just a tax of stuff that comes outside the country. I don't know the specifics of it, but to be kind to him, if you tariff or if you tax a foreign good, it incentivizes you to purchase within the country. And so it might absolutely increase the prices of goods. I'm not saying it won't, but the positive is that it's going to an American business. I don't know the specifics, but I'm just saying. Thank you so much for the small gut from, what is that, John Cena? Oh, I couldn't even see it.
For tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China.
I'm not necessarily against tariffs, by the way. I just don't know how much that would have an impact. I mean, you have to be careful about the impact it would have on the United States. But
in fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look.
Well, okay. Incredible stuff.
We've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries.
Our inflation's like 2.9%. It might be 2.6 now. It's still rough. Don't get me wrong, but you know, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of this, well, part of this is the war with like Russia, and we get a lot of oil from them and whatnot. But it's so interesting because, like, okay, we're going to spend money to hurt another country. What is that? That's a fundamental of us funding a war, you know, of our allies, which I generally agree with. Defending our allies. We defend our allies. It creates more confidence that they have in us. It creates a confidence the world has with us. They're more likely to work with us when it comes to trade deals and feel secure, right? So I like that idea. But fundamentally, you're taxing Americans so that you can hurt another country in some capacity. And that's what a tariff is too, right? You're taxing, because like that's what it is. It's about hurting that other country economically, so they're more willing to play ball. But it also does in some capacity strengthen America if you buy within, you know, the goods within. But still, it's still rough for everyday Americans.
We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before.
No, not that bad.
Probably the worst in our nation's history.
No, not really. It's not that bad.
We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% high.
I don't think we were ever at 21%. I think we hit 13. I might be wrong about that. August 2024, the inflation rate is 2.9, which is actually pretty in line. Like the yearly inflation is like 2 to 3%. That's actually very normal.
Than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring in.
Yeah, I think the highest was 8% in 2022. So I don't know why he's saying 20%. Yeah, I think it was the highest as 8%, and I could be wrong about that, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was 8%. There are going to be, that inflation is like general, so I think we saw pretty big surges. It might have been 20 or 30% in gas prices and oil prices, right? Because that's how it works. Like inflation is like the general amount of an overall inflation, and then there are particular goods and services that will have increase in price, right? But it's never been like 20%.
Into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon.
What jobs are those?
And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people.
Yeah, there does seem to be some gangs that have gotten into America, and we should do something more aggressive about that. I agree with that. I don't know if that's a federal issue or a state issue, but they should do something. Pay American gangs to go fight those gangs.
That she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country.
Not really.
I'll do it again.
Not really.
And even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security.
I would like to see, because it feels like immigration is the only thing right now that like the Democratic Party is weak on. I wish they would be stronger on it. Obama was strong as fuck on it.
During this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Well, yeah, of course, but that's because of COVID. So
Donald Trump left us.
Either way, his economic policies were shit. They were not good because there was no sustainability in drastically cutting taxes for rich people so that we could all have an extra $10 per paycheck in our pocket. There really wasn't. But like that's because of COVID. Now you could absolutely argue that his handling of COVID was not as good as it could have been. There should have been a better handling. He should have inspired more confidence as president. He was very wishy-washy about it. It's because his base is very conspiracy oriented, and so he had to kind of like masturbate them off. So like yeah, you could say COVID was worse because of Trump, absolutely, but like it was COVID generally.
The worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy.
The Dems had a bill that would reinforce the border, but Trump stopped it. Oh, okay. Is he? I mean, look up that. I mean, I wonder why. I wonder if it's because he didn't want the Democrats to get a win, or if it's because there was something else attached to that bill. Like the way that our bills work, there's like 50 million things attached to it. It's actually very annoying.
Since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
That's true.
What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people.
I mean, it's true. Mike Pence, his vice president, regardless of what you think of policy-wise, very clearly a true American, right? He didn't go along with Trump trying to circumvent the peaceful transfer of power. And that's why Trump supporters were saying kill Mike Pence. And that's why he's not running with Trump again. Right. I miss those days, those days where you had Democrat, Republican, and they were debating about the issues, but they were generally somewhat cordial. Trump is like a manifestation of like what Fox News.
Well, but I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and
True.
name calling.
He did just lie about the inflation.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Okay, so apparently I can't 100% confirm this, but apparently he messaged House Republicans. So he wanted to block it so that he could try to get himself elected and run on the border again. Because if the border was fixed, he'd have nothing else to run on.
I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do.
My understanding is it's like authoritarian. Like it's authoritarian levels of bad.
Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got masks. We did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not
didn't he increase the military spending by like $50 billion for new shit we didn't even need? Like
enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic.
Oh, he's talking about the Spanish flu. Well, apparently there's estimated between 17 million and 100 million deaths. So that seems a little bit wishy-washy there, but okay.
Pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to
He's right about that.
Their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic
Kind of true.
plan, it's all...
I mean, I've watched a bunch of them, and he really hasn't laid out like a reasonable policy other than, hey, I'm going to increase the taxes on other countries, and then what, like cut taxes on rich people? I think enough is enough with that shit.
About tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I
Charge rich people more. Charge me more. I should be paying more taxes. I'm not even kidding.
describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
Did Goldman Sachs actually say that?
What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have
Well, yeah, he did last time. He exploded the deficit.
described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a
Which ones?
plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for...
I mean, it's hard for him to talk about this when she's like, hey, I want to incentivize small business. I'm a little bit sold on small business. I think like one of the best ways to put the power back into people's hands is by incentivizing small business. I think that's such a positive thing. I'm kind of that's a pretty substantial thing. don't just generally cut taxes. Tax people more, and then cut taxes or take some of those money and put it into other things. Charge big businesses more, and then give tax cuts to small businesses, and then that makes the small businesses able to compete with those bigger businesses. I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much for the small gut from Nana Devaluk.
For our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are.
I don't know. She kind of laid it out, a little bit of it. It was pretty. The problem is, I watched a TikTok. I wish I had it still. That was like actually comparing and like went very in depth into both of their policies and plans. And overall, again, it was if you have a 2-parent household with 2 kids, you're better off economically than under Trump. Single people, probably not so much, but.
It's just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
What?
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board.
He's got to bring it back to Biden, because I think that his entire campaign has been centralizing around that.
Recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher?
I spent like fucking $17,000 a year this year on. Damn, did I spend that much? Yeah, premiums and everything on healthcare. It's fucking crazy.
Prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been.
Well, yeah, China, other countries that consumers purchase from, basically, is going to have higher prices, which means it's going to be passed on to us.
Been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those.
So what are you going to do with that money, though? Like, if you're, like, why are we doing? What are you doing with that extra money with the tariffs? Like, do you have like an argument for that we could work with, or
tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Is that like legitimately projected, or is he just saying hundreds of billions of dollars?
No inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our
He had a pretty average amount of inflation.
Country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say
it's not that bad. It's not great, but it's not that bad.
Say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips.
So apparently so I'm just looking into what exactly a trade deficit is, the amount by which the cost of a country's imports exceeds the value of its exports. So apparently what he's saying is like we're buying more than we're actually selling to other countries, which would be generally not a good thing. I mean, I don't understand everything like this too specifically, but I imagine if that's a change and we used to sell more, that's probably not a good thing.
To China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, ! When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
That is true.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21.
Well, is that illegal, or is that just everybody coming into the country? Because there are legal immigrants.
That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have... and
well, technically, immigration is probably a good for our economy to some degree, right? I mean, usually people who come here and the ones that work, it's less expensive. They usually get paid less. They're off the books. I mean, if you want to decentivize people coming here illegally, what you would do is you would probably punish the businesses hiring them. I think that's something to keep in mind, which doesn't seem to be something that anybody wants to do. So
she has destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida,
I mean, how do you have? I can't have it all there, bud.
You surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed. I mean,
I would trust Trump on abortion because I'm sure he's had plenty of women get them. Like, so, hey, fuck it, right?
Your position.
But no, obviously I'm pro-choice. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the idea or concept of abortion, but it's like a necessary evil. Let's be real. There's some people who aren't ready economically. Some people just shouldn't be parents. I think that there should be cut off. I'm more into the first trimester kind of a guy, personally. But, yeah.
So many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have...
Not really. It's so extraordinarily rare. In the 9th month, I don't think that even ever happens. I mean, there are 3rd trimester abortions, but that's pretty much only if there's an issue, like if there's a threat to the mother or the baby, right? So,
and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
What?
And that's why I did that, because
I just don't believe that's real.
That predominates because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But
he seems pretty cool, actually.
Her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is...
What the fuck is he talking about? There's absolutely no way anybody who said execute them after they're born already. What?
Born is okay, and that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also.
Well, that would be the most of those late-term abortions are because of those things, right? So, well, specifically life of the mother. So what's the real difference?
So 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote.
Where did Tim Walz say that he supports killing babies after they're born? I can't find it. When did he say that? The problem is Trump will lie about everything. He's already lying that the inflation was like 20%. He's constantly lying, so you can't take him on his word, and then I can't fact check it. Does anybody have any reference for this other than he said so?
And that's what happened. Now,
I can't find
Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in
I'm just not looking in the right place. Yeah. Fucking, where do I have to look on? Fucking Twitter? Jesus Christ.
this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they...
So from what I'm seeing, the only thing I can find is that, like, Tim Walz, I guess in his state, signed in a bill that would no longer require you to, I guess, keep a baby alive that had basically been attempted to be aborted. So I imagine that the abortion didn't take and the baby survived, and they're probably going to be extraordinarily, you know, the clinical term is fucked. And so they just have to provide care for it, but they don't necessarily have to make sure it stays alive. I mean, like, okay, that's, I guess, I don't know. Cool. I don't really, that's not the same thing as saying kill babies when they're born. Like, what the fuck?
They would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is...
Yeah, and like Trump saying that he supports the exceptions for, you know, rape and incest and whatnot, it doesn't really matter because he's tossed it back to the states. So he's not going to implement anything that changes that. So it doesn't really matter that he says that. It's done all well and good that he says he supports that, but he's not going to implement that into any type of a law. So
immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
It's funny because I feel like conservatives, for the most part, are kind of down with abortion because, like, a lot of people are like, yeah, some people shouldn't be parents. And it's a horrible thing to say, but, like, you know, there's people who I know probably should have got abortions. You know, it's your life, I guess. But yeah.
I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. I'm
not sure how common that is, but I mean, I guess it's possible that if a woman has a miscarriage, the doctor could potentially feel like very anxious about providing like any services to help them because they might be legally charged in some capacity. I mean, I can kind of see it.
She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you.
I like the Zoolander face that Trump makes.
When Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted.
And nobody wanted. I think like less than 25% of the country actually wanted that. He was able to stack the Supreme Court because Republicans refused to give Obama one. He was supposed to get be able to elect somebody. They delayed an entire year, and then he was able to get 2. He stacked the court and very conservatively. You know, Clarence Thomas is one of the people in there who was talking about banning gay marriage. Like, it's actually fucking insane. Nobody wanted this, realistically speaking. Very few people did compared to everybody else. But like, he's not going to sign in a ban. He's playing the fucking I'm a pussy game. It's like, well, I support some type of abortion, but it's up to the states. It's like, okay, you know what the states are going to do. So you're being very weak on abortion. You're being very limp-wristed on it for a reason. Okay, you're being a fucking coward about it.
Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And
no, they didn't. No, that's not true at all. Democrats did not want that at all. It's so weird because he just lies. He just constantly lies about things. It's so normal. Like, I expect the lies from him, but now we have to just kind of be like, no, that's not normal. He's lying right now. Democrats did not want this. Most Republicans didn't want this. Nobody wanted this. What the fuck are you talking about?
The states are voting, and it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
Nobody wanted it back in the states. The states are now voting.
What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss.
Yeah, I think that student loans are a little too much for people to really to be on board with, right? You know, I think that the systems are, like we were talking about this before, it's tough. Student loans are interesting because they are very expensive. A lot of young people don't understand what's happening when they get onto these student loans, and they end up kind of getting trapped into something that's very expensive at very high interest rates when they don't necessarily understand. Because I didn't understand when I was doing my student loans, right? So, yeah, I mean, like, I understand that. I don't think that the best way to do it is to wipe out everyone's student loan debt unless there's a plan to reduce the costs moving forward, right? And like I said, don't give subsidies to them unless they lower their costs. That's not a bad idea. Say, if your costs aren't in line with what they should be, we're not going to give you a subsidy. That will decentivize them from doing it, just to be clear. But we need something. So I'm fine with erasing student loan debt if there was a plan in the future to not have it accrue. But since we don't have that, I'm not for like the elimination of that. Then that's it. That's literally it. You know, we need a long-term plan. I'm fine with spending some money now for long-term being in a good spot. But at this point, cutting student loans down, all it's going to do is tell the student loan companies, oh, look, we won. We got away scot-free with it. So we need a better plan. We need a better plan before we do student loan stuff.
If you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students...
I think he was able to keep some of them for like nurses and stuff. I don't remember the specifics.
Got taunted with this whole thing.
Yeah, mine's 12%. My student loan, it's not technically mine, it's my ex's, but what are you going to do about it, right? It's 12%, man. It's crazy.
About this whole idea. And
like, realistically speaking, I shouldn't get access to fucking student loan relief anyway. I make too much money. I'm not even trying to be an asshole, you know what I mean? I don't know. I wouldn't eliminate everybody. I mean, if you look at the numbers, most student loan debt seems to be from people who are, like, kind of well off. I hate to say it. So it's like, is that the best? I don't know. You know? Generally speaking. But, I don't know. We should figure something out.
How unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying...
I wouldn't care. If I paid off all the student loans that I had tomorrow, and then the next day they were going to make it all free, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I really wouldn't give a shit personally. Again, I want a long-term solution, man. Give me a long-term solution.
It's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I...
Why is he saying it?
I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that
they didn't.
Everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have...
Well, no, people didn't believe that we were going to be able to overturn, like, abortion, which is what happened. Most people were just like, that'll never happen. And they kind of dismissed it. And then you kind of see how potentially dangerous it is now. So you better vote, motherfuckers.
A vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely...
I would say, personally, I'm more of a first trimester guy unless there's like an issue with the baby or the mother. That's me personally. If you want to kick that to states, that's fine. The most restrictive they should be is first trimester, right? You know, but I'm a fat person who plays World of Warcraft while he reacts to content. So for the most part, I'd probably try to kick this back to somebody else that's maybe a little more intelligent than I am about this specific topic. So
Absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you...
I mean, if anything, again, you want to reduce abortions, implement more sexual health, like age-appropriate sexual health education for people. Like, the reality is stupid people have fucking babies when they're not ready. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Stupid people tend to be younger, too, because young people are stupid. So, you know, teach them about the danger, like, properly. Don't do abstinence-led fucking sexual education, because that doesn't work. Young people, they get scared, and then once they're so horny, they fuck, and they're like, wait a minute, my penis didn't explode when I had sex with this girl. Oh my God, I love this now, right? So that's what happens. But you teach them, like, comprehensive sexual health education, you have a better conversation about consent and boundaries. It's time over time, people will have a reduction in the amount of, like, unprotected sex that they're having, so...
rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Yeah, it's not happening. I think that most women who get that far, they want to keep their kid. I'd say the overwhelming majority of them want to keep the kid. I mean, at that point, like, there's a reason they carried it for so long.
America, and understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women,
Is that true? People are being denied IVF?
who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to
Yeah, he said something about wanting to make it paid for, but I don't know if that's actually real.
strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
I haven't heard anything about IVF having an issue. People being denied IVF in, like, abortion states.
Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable.
Yeah, this would resonate with me more if I cared about women.
And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have to
you.
respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that. And
I mean, I imagine this is like a recent thing, right? So, like, it's so funny because the Democrats did this too, right? Like right before they started the debate, like, an election cycle started, Trump, Biden's like, "Oh, we're gonna do something strong for the border," right? It's like, okay, I know what you're doing. And now we kind of have that thing too. Apparently, there's an issue with IVF, and Trump feels the need to respond by being very strong about IVF. I imagine, but I have no idea what he has never talked about IVF until somewhat recently, so I have no fucking idea what the fuck he's talking about.
and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the
I don't think that's true, but okay.
other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like the idea of that, but like, if it's going to threaten the baby or the doctor's life, or the mother's life, yes. I don't know, man. It sucks, fucked up. You know, imagine being in a situation where you'd have to get an abortion at 8 months. You carried that kid. You probably want to have that kid, and the doctor's like, that baby is going to come out dead or something, right? They're going to say something fucked up, like, you're going to die if you have this kid, or the baby's going to die, or something really fucked up's going to happen. I'm really not trying to add a governmental paywall, you know, or a blockage there to additionally stress that parent out. So, yeah.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you?
I see. This is the reason that she's not going to answer the question, because like she would look bad, right? And it comes down to a fundamental problem that I have with the way the politicians talk to us, and they talk to us like we're stupid as fuck. Some people are really fucking stupid, but it would have been nice if she explained, like I had just said, like, hey, listen. It's based on what the doctor says. I don't like the idea of it, but I wouldn't stop it because if the doctors recommend it because the mom might die or the baby might die, then it needs to happen. And I feel like if she just says no, or if she just says like, yeah, and even if she explains like that, you know that like Fox News is going to run like, see, she wants to fucking murder babies. And it's like, okay, relax, idiot. But I would like to see a trend of politicians like being honest with us, like actually telling us the truth, being real with us about things so that we don't have so much distrust in the government.
Because
veto.
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question with your veto.
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look.
Probably after birth. He can't even commit to that one. Maybe probably after birth. Really? Based on what? Your feelings?
Look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump.
No, okay, so like I had said before, I think he's referring to that. What he's referring to is that if you had an attempted abortion on the baby and it didn't work when the baby's born, that's basically the conversation that's going to be had. The thing is, though, is if you had an attempted abortion on the baby, or whatever you want to call it when it's inside the cooter snooch, that means that baby's coming out fucked up. So it kind of makes sense, like, okay, let's see what mess we're dealing with after it comes out. It's not like, yeah, in most situations, we're just going to kind of have the kid and then fucking YOLO it, throw it into a dumpster. No, it's much more complicated than that.
Thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue.
But I wish you would explain that too, man, because I feel like it makes sense. It's like a reasonable thing to say.
That's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly.
Oh, good. That's nice.
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
That's a good question, man. That's a fair question. Like, to me, obviously, they waited this long because it wasn't an issue. And they only did something about it because they had to react to it, right? Because there are some people in the left that they love illegal immigration. Not a lot of people, but like they're very loud minority of people, right? Basically 17-year-olds on TikTok, mostly women. Well, I guess girls, because they're children. Right? But, like, yeah, it's a good question. Like, hey, be a little stronger on it. You know what I mean? Like, I would like to see you be stronger on this.
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah, get rid of those No, I'm just kidding.
For the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Okay.
And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl.
My feeling was illegal immigrants, so I got to be biased. Listen, here's my thing. It should be we shouldn't have illegal immigrants in this country. We need to decentivize it. But if you make it in here, I'm not going to snitch. Okay? I'm not going to snitch on you. If you even told me like I'm illegal, I'll say, shh, no, you didn't tell me that. On a sociology, widespread level, I understand that we really shouldn't be having a bunch of illegal immigrants coming into the United States. On a one-on-one basis, I'm not gonna tell anybody. You know what I mean? It's not my fucking business. I'll be like, damn, God bless, you actually made it in here. Good for you, man.
Coming into the United States, I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
That might be true. Sure.
And understand, this comes...
Somebody was saying that before, but I would not doubt that,
at a time where the people of our country actually
still, Biden could have done something sooner. Let's be real. Let's be fair here.
Need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
Damn.
And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
That's probably true. He did before. He pivoted there. I think it's because that's probably a big part of his platform, and it's just going to kind of give some validity with what she's saying.
And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
God.
And I will
well, I did see that a bunch of people left after Megan Thee Stallion performed it in one of hers. I feel like that's probably just normal for people to leave at the rally after they get fucking bored.
Tell you the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I believe
she's turning on this. She's getting a little spicy right now, boy. She's getting fucking spicy.
You deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
Good question. I want to hear his response to it. Give him a fair chance to respond.
Let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies.
It's interesting because I wonder if she said that to intentionally get him to ramble and not answer the question that she knew was coming up. Right? Like, I think that she probably knew logically this was going to be the next conversation that we're going to have. It's like, hey, yeah, why did you kill this bill? Volume 3. And so she goes in there and hits his ego and talks about how his fucking rally's boring as shit and he's gonna get stun locked. I wonder if she just debated. I wonder if she just pulled a Destiny debate term on here and just actually made him fucking mauled.
There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk.
She did it on purpose. Look at her fucking face. This is what she wanted.
About that. People don't leave my rallies. They're the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Oh my God, she
That's
just
because
played the
people want
fuck
to
out of him.
take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation, and it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here? You're going to end up in World War III. Just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to
He's not going to answer the question.
Towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Bro, she just debate pedophiled him, yo. She just fucking debate molested him right here. He took this one's bad for him. He looks really stupid. Hey, why didn't you support that bill? Well, and then he goes off on a tangent. I wonder if he was ever going to answer it.
They're eating.
Like, the fact that you just got manipulated by a black woman, I can't vote for you, brother. You can't take an L from black. I'm just kidding. That's too racist. But he just got fucking like a 4D chest on this one. Well, it's probably more like a 2D chest, but for him, it's 4D.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Bro, I love the focus of this because it's just it's so interesting because I think for some people, sometimes it takes a little bit of like mental consideration to start considering something. I know it sounds a little silly, but just hear me out. She just went on about how he just rambles. And I think that some people, especially when he's up against Biden, didn't really understand that he really hasn't formed a coherent sentence in a while. And now she's put the thought in your head. And now what are we doing? We're watching this and we're like, this motherfucker is rambling. All he's doing is rambling. What the fuck is he talking about? Answer the fucking question. Thank you for the $5 from That's Crazy. Just goon to your beard. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, brother. That's very sexy. Thank you.
And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being...
Trump is going to be the reason why we're going to have a fucking black woman president, man. He's taking such a fucking hard L.
Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio.
Just didn't answer the question. Thank you for the $2 from JC. Here you go. Oh, Papa Gut. All right. I gotta remove what you said. You know, I can't be in support of that type of language, brother. I love you, though. Thank you for the $2.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on
Frankly, I wouldn't care if there were. I'm not trying to be fucking rude, okay? I wouldn't doubt it either, because, like, American, like, Western culture is usually nicer to dogs. They eat dogs in some places. And by the way, I'm not really against it. It's a fucking dog. Eat cows, eat dogs. I don't think you should kill them rudely. You should kill them humanely. Okay? But I don't really give a shit if you eat a dog. But I wonder if there is actual reports of that if he's just... I mean, he's made so much shit. His credibility is shot.
Television.
Let me just say here, this is the...
People on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence.
Did it taste good? Like, how is it prepared?
To that, Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
Bro, I'm for dog. Yeah, of course I'm for dog eating, dude. Who gives a shit? You got so many fucking homeless people. You think I give a fuck about a dog? Eat the dog. Dog burger.
You talk about extreme.
She's gonna clown him.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to,
I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Like, I remember watching like NPR in 2016, or not 2016. What the fuck am I talking about? I remember watching NPR when I was younger. I don't even remember when it was. But there was a lot of conversation from like career Republicans that are just like, this party is just not the same anymore. There was a lot of retirements going on. Like the Republican Party isn't what it used to be. The Republican Party is just not what it used to be anymore. You know, there's really no cordialness to the debate sphere or any of these things. Like, we expect politicians to sensationalize media and all that other nonsense, right? Like, we saw Kamala do that just before. She's sitting here talking about how, like, oh, they added so many new jobs. Obviously, that was because of COVID. But the reality is Trump lies constantly. It's not even that he's sensationalizing and like saying a masked truth, we'll say. I don't know, something like that. He's just lying flat out, like, well, inflation was like 20%. It's like, no, it wasn't. It's like, but he'll just say things. It's like, how do you trust somebody like that? I can navigate through deceptive, manipulative conversation. Like, I could see what you're trying to say when you say something, and I think that a lot of people can like read between the lines. Not everybody, some people have a less education, but I can see like what you're saying when you're speaking. The way that Kamala Harris is. And is it ideal? No, but like, what is the alternative? A legitimate liar, somebody who just like legitimately will lie about everything, and he doesn't care, and his base doesn't care. Hey, thank you so much, Yaka. How the fuck do you say that? Yapka. Your boy Ken's. That's pathetic for my part. Thank you for the medium gut, brother.
I don't really know the inside track on who the former president is if he didn't make it clear already. Just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
Damn.
His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
It's true. He did just walk away from that conversation about why he canceled the border thing.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
I'm the jonkler.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen.
Well, listen, I'm sure that there are people in the government that deserve to be fired. But this motherfucker got rid of so many different people. He's like, we're going to drain the swamp. He pulls a bunch of people, and that's, by his logic, we're into the swamp. And then he's like, oh, now they're the swamp. What changed? It's possible that he just correctly identified a bunch of bad people, or maybe he's just a fucking moron. I don't know. It's a tough call. What do you think? Thank you for the $2 from That's Crazy. How will this affect the Jerkmate servers? That's a good question, brother. I really appreciate it.
So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation.
The economy's pretty good right now. It's not that bad. It's not amazing, but it's not that bad.
They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far.
Yeah, but the problem with him bragging about that is he brags about how he got the most votes, and then he complains about why. Not specifically, but why did Trump get the most votes? Because we had a week to vote, and you could do mail-in ballots. That's literally all it came down to. So that's why he got the most votes. Do that again, you're going to see people get a lot more votes. But people don't. They have more time to vote. It's what a crazy fucking world we live in, where if you have more time to vote, you vote more. It's fucking. It's incredible. Thank you for the $2, Mason. Poop. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
In fact, I got more votes than any sitting president in history by far.
Well, yeah, not anymore, because Biden got more votes than you.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic...
I like how we're just not going to push him on the topic. I'd be like, hey, can you answer that fucking question before, dickhead? Thank you for $2 from Jay. Who are you voting for? It's always going to be Kamala. It's going to be anybody that's not Trump. This is the first time I would ever say that. Trump is such a shit president. He tried to circumvent he tried to stage a fucking a coup or whatever on the fucking government. Okay, he was desperately trying to. He lost the fucking election. He contested it, which is fine. He took an L in every court, conservative, progressive, otherwise, and then he rallied people on January 6th to fucking storm the Capitol, saying we need to fight now. That's literally it. After you do something like that, it's over. Okay, he knew what he was doing. He didn't call them off for 3 hours. They were trying to kill Mike Pence. Mike Pence isn't even running with him anymore. It's a big deal. Mike Pence isn't running with him anymore. His own fucking... why? Why wouldn't his own... Does anybody consider how fucking crazy that is? It's never gonna... It can never be Trump.
Deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that.
I mean, it's impossible to deport that many. I wouldn't even be in favor of that. That would be massively disruptive to the economy. We're dependent on those people, unfortunately, in different capacities. Do I think that we need to get rid of gangs? Absolutely. And so if you want to fucking weaponize the military or whatever, go for it. Do that. Absolutely, 1,000%. But you really can't do that. You need to decentivize the reason people are coming here, and part of that is welfare services, and part of that's because there are so many places that don't check if your papers to get a job, right? So, but they won't do that because fucking rich people love that kind of shit. Thank you for the 15-month medium gut from Tommaso. Papa, you eat cats in Ohio or what? I would. Thank you for the 18-month small gut from Dimitoriasu. So a guy walks into a bar and says, "Ouch." Incredible.
Number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals.
Right, so did you have a chance to elaborate on this plan, bud? Let's hear it.
Many millions.
He's not going to elaborate on the plan, and the reason is because it's not a real plan, right? He's saying a thing, and he has no plan to be like, "Hey, this is how I would do it," because he can't. He has no actual plan. It's just rambling. He has no fleshed out anything for anything.
Millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug
They allowed uncommon street criminals.
dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, "Don't ever come back or we're going to kill you." Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why?
Well, I think crime is down in our country as well. This is just like an instance of some fucked up shit that needs to be handled.
Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
Okay,
and this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it. Because they're
I like that one. That's a dog whistle. He thinks they're going to get votes, and he's probably referring to the fact that he wants to pretend that illegal immigrants can vote in this country for federal elections, and they simply cannot.
Destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people.
Who's listening to this going like, "Yes, Trump, you're so right. I'm going to fucking come."
Let in. And all over the
Thank you so much for the small gut from, was that Khaleesi? Am I saying that right? Sorry if I said that wrong.
World. Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
It's really not true, man. It feels like that because we're constantly engaging with the most sensationalized stories on the internet every day because that's what gets views. We like to be scared. Let's be fucking real here, okay? But crime is really not up. There are problems. Like, let's be real. But, like, crime is really not up, so...
Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime.
The fraudulent statements are probably going to be like the facts and information that they're referencing.
It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says
Yeah, I think it's possible. Okay.
overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
Excuse me, the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you this.
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst.
It's funny because Trump wanted to get the DOJ to make fraudulent statements about about the election and how they actually found voter fraud when they didn't.
Cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
What?
Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump thing.
Wait, what are you talking about? No, it didn't. What is he talking about? Now, if he wants to say, like, no, these are in some more isolated areas where there are problems, and so when you look at it that way, it's worse than you think. Like, okay, we could talk about that, but saying, no, everything's fraud, it doesn't work. I mean, this guy lies constantly. You can't take his word for anything.
Thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes.
Oh my God, that's funny. Actually, thank you for $5 from Hog Sickle. If you announce endorsement for Vermin Supreme, I'll become a member. All right, brother. I can't do it. He looks like a nice guy, but he also looks crazy as fuck. Thank you for the 21 months medium gut from Jado. What do you mean? We have millions of illegal immigrants who spend all day waiting in line to vote. Then they get back in line with fake mustaches. That is fucking so true, dude. You're actually right. What the fuck are you talking about, brother?
Economic crimes, election interference,
you silly
has
little
been
goose.
found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands.
I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court already voted that they're gonna like he's not gonna really get like any consequences or whatever in some capacity. But okay.
On the issue
Which
of
is
what is
fucking
important
crazy.
about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement, the former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So
Thank you for the small gun hogsicle. I appreciate that, brother.
let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the...
I'd like to have those conversations more than the ramblings we've been having, to be honest with you. That'd be really interesting. Imagine that these people came in with actual plans and they pushed each other on their plans like, well, actually, this wouldn't work because of this. And like, we just got the most boring fucking debate ever. That would be amazing. That would be so good.
price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted
If they're so gross, why do you want to eat them?
with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the
This is the guy who was like cheering to lock up Hillary Clinton. What the fuck is he talking about?
rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that
He tried to withhold funding from Ukraine until they like fucking gave him opposition research. What is he talking about? What the fuck?
came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in...
What doc is he talking about? Where Joe Biden had some like documents in his house from when he used to be vice president, and they were like, "Hey, you've had these documents for a year. Give it back." And he's like, "Oh, sorry," and he gave it right back. Where Trump held onto it for over a year, and then they eventually had to like they go into his like apartment or whatever and take it. What are we talking about?
In my documents case, they said,
How are they weaponized the Supreme Court though? Like he literally stacked it. What?
oh, that's the toughest of them all.
That's why we need to implement like every election cycle. The sitting president should be able to implement their own justice, right? And then like you retire the oldest one. So
A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
President
They're
Trump,
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's
I think I'd love to watch somebody watch this that was like, yeah, Trump is right. I'd just love to see that. He's so fucking crazy.
talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
I mean, he was talking about censoring fucking media at one point, so.
Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
J.D. Vance is just like a useful idiot.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
Well, let's be real. It's not because of the things they say about Jews, because you again tried to overthrow the government. So, sorry.
Talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
He is 100%. He's 100%. January 6th is 100% a threat to democracy. 1,000%.
Threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump,
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't.
I don't even know what the fuck fracking is. I'm going to be absolutely real with you. What the fuck is fracking? What is fracking? Fracking or hydraulic fracturing is a method used to extract oil and natural gas from shale and other formations. Oh, I don't care. Who gives a shit about that? I believe we need to move in a more green direction, but I don't give a shit about banning fracking. Thank you for the $2 from That's Crazy. You give Trump some top for $1 million, though? I'd consider it.
You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
I mean, it's a good question. I want to hear her answer. Frankly, I think that when you are somebody running, and this is fundamentally, and it's going to be like more charity to any politician because politicians lie a lot, but there are people that have their own things that they want to do, and there are things that they do not necessarily care if they do implement or not. And it's like, okay, what do my people want? There's nothing wrong with supporting what your people want. Right now, though, I don't think that we're in the conversation of greener energy because we have a fucking... We have somebody who wants to overthrow the government, that she's up against. So her changing her positions to be more, progress or to be more like a little more moderate, I think is perfectly fine. Like I'm fine with that. I don't really have an issue with fracking. I'm not educated on it, so I could be wrong about it. I believe in like greener energy, but I don't really have an issue with fracking. So I don't really see an issue here necessarily. I think if the $2 from Carter are, will the other world leaders respect Kamala? Who gives a fuck? We're America, the strongest country in the world. I don't give a fuck if they're going to have to respect her. That's really what it boils down to. That's one of the most badass things about being an American is you have to respect us. You can sit there like these European countries and go, we don't respect America. We don't respect America. But the reality is that European countries don't exist without, the only reason that they exist is because they're tourist spots for us. Your country survives heavily on the fact that we decided to go there for a vacation spot. To your fucking shitty little country that's got really nothing going on. It's extraordinarily boring. It's not diverse at all. There's nothing really interesting to do. And then the only any interesting thing that you have over there is just because we decided to import it over there in some capacity. Oh, there's a Disney. Why do you think that is? Right? So that Americans can go from here over there to go to Disney. All right, your country overall is like a 50th the size of ours. Like you don't really compete with us. It's a delusion for you to constantly talk about us and hate on us, and we don't really think about you. Like you kind of just exist on the other side of the pond. That's pretty much it, and that's really what it kind of boils down to. You like to complain about us, but it's because we're top dog. Everybody wants to complain about us. We don't give a fuck. That's what it really comes down to. You guys talk about us all the time. We're not even educated on your country. You might be, it's because you're stupid. No, it's because our country is so fucking big. Okay? A third of our country is bigger than your entire fucking life. You don't even know. Okay? It takes like fucking 30-hour drives to go from country to country or across the entire fucking United States. Get the fuck out of here. Thank you for the $5 from Hogsicle. Wait, this is so unfair. They keep giving Kamala easy questions, and Donnie really hard ones. Like, how do you feel about Roe v. Wade? Yeah, that's the toughest question of the day.
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest...
That makes sense, right? Instead of imposing a tariff on other people's goods, you incentivize it by making those goods more robust here. It makes sense. This way it doesn't stress out the American people. Sure.
Increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work.
Well, it makes sense now, especially since we are basically in like a pseudo, proxy war to some extent with Russia, right? So it makes sense if we're dependent to some degree because we trade with other countries on their oil. It might make more sense right now to be like, okay, well, let's make us less dependent. We have so much oil here. The reason we use other people's oil first is just so that we can harbor those resources for a longer time. But if we're in the middle of some kind of like a conflict, then like, yeah, let's start producing it more here if we have the ability to, and then that will also reduce the gas prices, right? Since that is a little bit of an issue, since we are having an issue with Russia right now. Thank you for $50 from Carter R. I need Kamala to pimp slap Putin to believe you. Okay.
Work with the private sector and home builders to increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
What the fuck? How did we get here?
And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based
I'm gonna be real with you. I have no idea how the fuck we got here, Kamala. What the hell are you talking about?
on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not...
Protecting seniors from scams. Protecting seniors from a particular demographic, calling them and saying, give us gift cards.
changed. And what is important is that there is a president who
The
actually
demographic is very nice people, by the way, okay?
brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up
Although, if you see the prices of taquitos now, maybe we are getting scammed in more ways than one.
and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up.
It's in beating people off until they come.
I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot
He
from
only
him.
got like $1 million, okay? So let's relax, Kamala. He's definitely not privileged like the rest
But I
of
was
us.
given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into
Do not redeem the card, guys, okay?
many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She's
Was she against it? Was she, what? Wait, what? She's been against it?
been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever.
Good. I'm happy that she's against defund the police. What is the point that he's trying to make?
She gave all that stuff up very
Oh, wrong
wrongly,
one.
very horribly,
Wrong ability.
and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12
I mean, it makes sense to change based on like what's going on in the system. If right now we're having an issue where we need to have our own oil reserves in a greater capacity, does it not make sense to adjust your policy and be like, okay, we can't really operate with the priority that we wanted to?
and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please.
What? I don't understand what happened. Why is he getting so triggered by her like making a comment? He wasn't doing that the whole time. Like the mics are off. It doesn't really matter.
Does that sound familiar?
What?
She went out
Wait, he's so triggered right now. What the fuck?
in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned
fuck.
down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
What the fuck are you talking about, bro? What the hell is this guy talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm not understanding what the fuck you're saying, dude. What is happening right now? This is actually fucking psychotic. What is he talking about? Transgender, dude, how do we engage with this? And I don't care if she was. What the fuck does this have to do? She wants to do transgender operations on illegal immigrants? Good, feminize them. I don't give a shit. What the fuck are you talking about? What is happening right now? I'm fucking shitting and coming right now. Oh, fuck.
This is a radical left liberal
Bro, what the fuck are you talking about, dog?
that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So
He can't even say it's important. He doesn't say it's in his opinion.
I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago.
I feel like I need to be 5 times harder to watch this fucking insane shit show.
They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil
What the fuck?
will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see?
Just to be clear, when it comes to solar, I'm a little confused on the comment. When it comes to solar, you can do this thing called your house. It's pretty good, so I don't know.
A solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
What the fuck is he talking about solar like this for? What is he referring to? What? I mean, I understand windmills need like windmill farms. What the fuck is he talking about? I mean, I don't know why I'm asking the question like it matters.
things
that we
for the
have to
environment.
get
He
to.
doesn't
We're
know
out
what
of
he's
time.
talking about.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which,
I can't wait for this one, boy.
of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically.
It doesn't matter. You waited 2 hours to actually call people off. You wanted them to do what they did. Shut the fuck up. Okay? If someone's dog is attacking you and you're sitting there and I said, I told the dog not to do anything, and you don't say anything for 5 fucking minutes. Like, it's pretty reasonable to assume you kind of wanted the dog to fucking eat whoever it was. Okay? No, princess, don't bite. She never is usually like this.
And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer.
Good. I'm happy she's fucking dead. So I don't really give a shit. I don't care if any of them. All of them probably should have fucking died. You're gonna storm the Capitol, you fucking treasonous bitch. Go fuck yourself. I don't care that she's dead. Good. I'm happy she's fucking dead. Who cares? Fuck her. Like, who gives a shit? Just out-of-control police. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. Out of control, my ballsack. I'm happy she's fucking dead. She deserved to fucking die. You want to, conservatives always want to have these conversations about how we need harsher punishment. There's your harsher punishment. She deserved to fucking die. You don't storm the Capitol like that and expect not to get fucking shot. Sorry, asshole. Go fuck yourself. Who gives a shit? Okay? Rest in peace to your family. That obviously you're all probably just as fucking stupid if that person came out of your family. I don't know what to tell you. Who gives a fuck? Who cares?
Sir, that should have never, ever shot her.
Why? Fucking who cares? Who gives a shit? You're going to storm the Capitol. Why do I care? You're going to try to fucking overthrow the government? You think, I'm sorry. Dude, we got Tim Pool talking about fucking executing people for treason. I agree. Good. Sorry. What to tell you, dude? I don't give a fuck. I do not give a shit. Who cares? Who gives a fuck?
Disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was
border czar. Well, he never answered the question why he blocked the bill that would give 1,500 more border security agents. But
the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she.
Well, that's because that's all you really have to talk about, and that's probably why you didn't. It's probably why you didn't implement something that would. What the fuck is happening? You probably didn't implement something that would fix that because you wanted to run on that. That makes perfect sense to me.
He knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, Dave.
Isn't it funny, though, people come all over the world to America and then they talk about how amazing their country is? Like, is it? Is it, though?
All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the
who took over in Seattle? Oh, are we talking about the gangs? Yeah, we should do something about them. Take care of them too. I don't give a fuck. Give them the Ashley Babbitt. I don't care.
president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that.
You had everything to do with that. What a fucking pussy. Just admit it, you fucking coward bitch.
Then they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
He offhandedly mentioned having more security there after he rallied people there and said that we need to fight like hell and did nothing about it for like 3 hours while they were chanting, kill Mike Pence. Go shut the fuck up. Shut up. Thank you for the small gut from Crab Ragooner. I love you.
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi
It would have been better if you just didn't inspire a riot in the first place. Then we wouldn't really have this problem, would we?
Rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened.
Her possibly having a level of responsibility for not, you know, putting better security there, that's a valid criticism. You know what else is one? Not actually inciting the riot, you fucking piece of shit. What the fuck are you talking about? This is so childish. Shut the fuck up.
What happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs? I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi.
You were responsible for inciting a fucking riot.
Was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
She broke in.
She
shot Ashley Babbitt. Now I'll definitely vote for you.
The vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob
True.
to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate.
Because he's a coward. That's really what it is. He's a fucking pussy who couldn't take an L, and so he wanted to incite a riot. And that's the truth of the situation, man. That really is what it boils down to.
Our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured. And
Yeah, and then you had them go on to Fox News or whatever, or they were talking about how they were traumatized. What am I? And Fox News was like laughing at them, like, oh, it's like, dude, these people got traumatized.
some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Well, yeah, but the conservatives don't seem to give a shit about Jews, so this, it seems both sides have a little bit of a sore spot for us Jews now. Thank you for the $5 from Willow Amnesty. I use these super heats to fuel my findom kink. What the super chats, you think you meant to say. Thank you for taking my money, Master God. Donald Trump is so dumb. I forgot how bad he was before this. Yeah, he's a fucking idiot. This is the problem, is like, he was taught, who was he used to engaging with? Joe Biden. By comparison, anybody looks good. Joe Biden can't even fucking speak. Right? He's a tough. He can speak for like 10 minutes. He's got 10 minutes in him. He's got 10 minutes in the fucking tank. But yeah.
And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud
Imagine if that was all it was, man, we'd be in such a better spot.
Boys, a militia. The former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Did he actually say that? I wouldn't doubt it, but let me see if I can look into that after this.
Turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different
Oh, apparently he did say that. What the fuck? He said that there'd be a bloodbath. Okay. I wonder what the context of that is. What the fuck?
term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also,
oh, okay, so he did say it.
On Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity.
You said debunked, and then you put up some of the stupidest fucking people that have ever existed. Sean Hannity? Sean Hannity? Sean Hannity's a fucking moron. Are you kidding me right now? He's probably the stupidest person at Fox News. Unironically. Like, he is dumb. He's a very stupid person. Sean Hannity? That's crazy. I could never imagine referencing that person, even if I was in the right. You think I would ever reference Sean Hannity? Okay? That's fucking insane.
Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was
Sean Hannity's a fucking lying idiot. He's a very stupid person.
Debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it.
Well, again, he hasn't answered why he didn't do anything.
I would say we would both.
Like, why did he cancel the fucking thing? Like, why did he cancel the border support?
Leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down.
Wasting time. Yeah, that's what I would say, too, if I was getting fucking absolutely decimated in the conversation.
Down to, because she's been so bad. It's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington.
She's been doing much better than you, bud.
Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because.
But you're the one you blocked that.
They have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill.
He's unhinged. He knows he got fucking decimated.
If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the border.
Well, you can't just close the border. That's a stupid idiot thing to say. But like, yeah, he should be harder on it. But like, again, why'd you block it?
Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to
only people who died on January 6th are the ones who deserved it.
Focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 2.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely
I'm surprised he doesn't say anything about how he didn't actually lose.
claim that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by...
How do you say it sarcastically that you lost by a whisker? That's not sarcastic at all. That's what? That's what?
By a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look.
What's the sarcastic value in that? I don't understand how that would be sarcastic. I truly don't understand. How is it sarcastic to say you lost by a whisker? Like, because the sarcasm typically means that there's some kind of a joke there. I don't get the joke.
There's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
There's literally no proof. So
they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten.
Yeah, no shit. Biden got more votes than that, though.
I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections.
Like Borders books?
Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English.
They're not trying to get them to vote. Some people in some states will be able to vote on local elections, right? Some illegal people. And if you have a disagreement, that's fine. But they cannot vote in federal elections, just to be clear.
They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
So
I did watch
poorly.
all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican,
judge looked at it.
And said
they
there
said
was
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have
So you had such little evidence that they said you don't have standing.
standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we
Well, you weren't the president of the United States anymore, so.
lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you
Jesus.
Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into
Not really. Again, things could be better, but we're not in decline, so.
decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences.
He's going to jail his opposition. That's incredible.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
I mean, I don't know. He might be. He might potentially try to suppress some kind of vote. I don't really know. I mean, he's a fucking psychopath, you know?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly,
That's actually kind of funny, the way she said that.
he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked
I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. Let's just be real.
with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you
He's
then
stuck.
talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person.
I don't care. You can't believe anything he says. He's literally been lying this entire time, so.
Smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole...
I'm going to be real with you. I'm not super concerned with what the Prime Minister of Hungary is. Okay, I do not give a shit about that person's opinion. I don't mean to be mean. I care more about the opinion of people who probably matter a little more. And I don't mean to be rude, but like Hungary, that's a very specific one. Like, why would I give a fuck about what Hungary has to say or think about anything ever? I'm really not trying to be mean, but like, I don't give a shit about fucking Hungary. I couldn't even point that out on a map. I don't think people in Hungary could point that out on a map. Who gives a shit?
whole world blowing up. 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We
Who the fuck is Viktor Orban? What are you talking about?
had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. He got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14
Why would I care about this guy? Who the fuck is this guy?
million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
What the fuck is he talking? I don't even know what he's just babbling.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the
Ooh, spicy time. Israel, Hamas, baby. Let's just be real. It is Israel-Palestine. There's a lot of support for Hamas in Palestine. A lot, actually. And it's probably because, like, it's a country that's under a lot of turmoil, and so radical leaders are the ones that are getting elected. But, okay.
hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be
That's fair.
respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now,
I think that's fair. But also, let's keep in mind, like, Hamas should probably try to protect their own civilians, too. When they're putting them in the line of fire, it's probably not particularly productive. They're hiding their fucking, like, you know, their base of operations underneath hospitals and apartment buildings. I mean, you know, I would imagine you'd think that the country, you know, you think you'd have more value for your own people in your country, but
now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain.
Nice.
Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis.
damn, she's going full conservative on this one, boy.
Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were
I wonder how many young people are just going to decide not to vote because she's taking this stance.
horribly raped. And so, absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to
I think $2 from Angie Tosi pointing into your stomach. That's where hunger is. Thank you.
defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately. And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out.
Sure, that sounds good.
And so we will continue to.
Hopefully we can get there. I mean, realistically speaking, it's a good thing to talk about. I think with like social media, people, you know, it's a foreign issue. I'm not like as concerned with it as other issues personally. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be rude, but you know, it's not my own country. I know it's a terrible thing to say, but it's just how I feel. And just being honest with you, man.
To work around the clock on that.
Fuck.
Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution.
Yeah, I agree with that too, for 100%. These two groups of people are not going to be able to live together in the same country because they both caused harm onto the other side. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Maybe even pay reparations to Palestine, you know?
And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel.
Yeah, and I think Iran is like backing Hamas. So,
but we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty solid answer, I think.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were
Thank
president,
you for the $5 from Hogsicle. Call me a cookie the way I'm going to crumb. Okay. That's fucking wild, brother. Thank you.
It would have never started. If I were president, Russia.
What are you talking about? Didn't he like exclude Palestine from like trade negotiations over there? Like, didn't he declare that the fucking U.S. embassy was going to be in Jerusalem? And like, he absolutely he absolutely had a negative impact on this conversation. No, like we understand that. Like, he did not do well.
Would have never, ever. I know Putin very well. He would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people.
Wait, what are we talking? I'm so lost. Just forgive me. Did we even fucking talk about Ukraine? Or did he just make up Ukraine? I thought we were talking about Israel, Palestine.
When you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there.
I'm fucking confused.
But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party.
What?
She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that.
You've been terrible at every predictions. One of the predictions that you actually had was that you'd win the election, and you didn't. Isn't that so funny?
She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the
I'm definitely voting for her now. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. What?
whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have.
I'm not understanding. Like, what? So she gave a pretty solid speech of like, hey, I believe broadly in a two-state solution. I agree that Israel deserves the right to defend itself, but I also think that the Palestinians need to be treated with dignity. Great answer. And then he's just going on about whatever the fuck he's talking about. Like, what are you talking about? Thank you for the 2-month small gut from Enter Charman. Oh, okay. Chazman, maybe that it is. We need to spread justice and assert freedom. Hell yeah, brother.
Never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're getting also backed by Russia, but okay.
terror.
And we're in a war with them, so they can't really afford it. So if anything, we're doing a pretty good job.
Horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror.
Do you think they covered it well, or do you think he's just saying that to try to get them on his side?
They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended if I'm president.
How? What are you going to do? I need more specifics than like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to come.
Elect. I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
I mean, like, kind of. I mean, yeah, it's hard to say since he tried to overthrow the government January 6th. Like, yeah, I wouldn't, I mean, kind of did do those things.
It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
She's got a fucking grilling the fuck out of this guy. Holy shit.
And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace.
Damn.
That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten.
Well, I mean, we know for a fact that they interfered in the 2020 election. So Putin endorsing her publicly, to me, just suggests that he's trying to sow more division. So
away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened.
And then there was like 14 indictments in his team. So
with me. the leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world?
Well, what would you have done? Aren't you? You're like buddy with Russia. Like you keep talking about how like he's a great guy and all this other shit, and then you're going to be able to take care of this problem. So like, what would you have done? Wouldn't you have given him the same exact thing? I don't know too much about this, the Keystone Pipeline and all this shit, so I can't like give too much commentary on it, but it sounds like you would have made the same decision. So
Going to Germany and all over Europe because they're weak.
I mean, it sounds like so just hearing about this pipeline, it sounds like it's something that would provide Russia the ability to sell oil maybe to other countries, which is probably mutually beneficial for everybody. So
And they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back
it certainly is fucking historic, I'll tell you that much.
in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will
ABC
continue.
News Goonerific Poopy Wiener, brought to you by Papa God. We're just gonna skip through the ads. Sorry, guys. Let's get back to the debate story.
ABC News into this conflict.
That's why it's great watching it a little delayed.
Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration
I think if the two Austin, that's crazy. They should do an edge competition. Yeah, I agree.
that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
1000%. Ukraine is our ally. We should be supporting our allies. Russia is antithetical to us and our democracy. They don't have free elections. They don't have a free country. So yeah, 1000%. We have to show Russia. Russia is a bunch of little kids, and we need to show them like who's daddy. Right? Russia is a superpower, and they are the weakest one, the most pathetic one, and the most annoying one, to be absolutely honest with you. Because Russian food, who's ever even heard of it? At least we've heard of Chinese food, okay? So, yeah, like, they need to go sit in a fucking corner. That's literally it. That's why that's it. That's all it comes down to. Sit in a fucking corner. Like, you ain't shit. That's pretty much it, boy. So.
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being.
Thank you for the $2 from Enter Chazban. Trump is going to ban World of Warcraft. That's it, dude. That's the last straw, bro.
Killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers.
Everything's a fake number. Okay.
Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for
Who fucking cares? We're America. We decided to be the world police. That comes with responsibilities. We own the world. That's really what it comes down to. We're the most powerful, the most feared country, and we should be leading by example. America is a man. Okay? All these conservatives want to talk about being a man. What is a man? A man is when you just kind of close yourself off and you stay in your country like a little bitch. No, fuck that. A man is supposed to show everybody their dick. Okay? America's a man. We have decided to take on the responsibility of policing the world, and this is what it looks like. It looks like very aggressive support for our allies, okay? And it's good for us because when we do stuff like this, it inspires confidence in other countries to ally themselves with us, and it can potentially give us access to more and different resources. That's it. That's literally what it is. So shut the fuck up, pussy. Sometimes shit sucks. Nobody wants a war, but Russia does. Russia wants to kill its own people. Good. Let's give Ukraine all the support that they need, and they can fucking wipe Russia off the map if they want to keep pushing. Enough of this shit, dude. Fucking who cares? Fucking, we're gonna end the war. Dude, it's like we live in an unfortunate, not perfect world, and that's just the life we're in, and we're gonna have to be strong against Russia because they're a bunch of, like, Russia people are great, but Russia, the country, is fucking dog shit. It's a fucking shit country that oppresses its own people and tries to push into other areas. They starved people out of areas of Ukraine to try to take over areas. Hassan has done wonderful defense for them for free. What a guy, huh? I would have at least taken the money, am I right? Yeah. Even for the $2 from Hawksicle, he'd end it in 24th by ending the world in the 24th. Yeah, fucking for real, bro.
$150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions.
So what's the issue? The war happening or how much we're spending on it?
Hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 200.
This is the guy who's got fucking literally a white stain on his shirt from Russian cum all over himself, and he's going to sit here and talk about being a coward? Come on.
50 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well.
There's a reason why countries hate us, and then they come here, and that's literally it. And one of the reasons is because we talk big and then we deliver. Okay, we're defending Ukraine. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Sorry.
Have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made
He's quiet. There you go.
a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody.
Who cares? Putin's a fucking pussy. He's a loser. Who gives a shit about Putin? I don't respect Putin. I don't care. We don't need... If he's going to start a fucking war with one of our allies, I don't give a shit. By the way, he's losing to Ukraine. How pathetic. You're a superpower. Losing. They're losing ground to Ukraine. That's fucking... Why the fuck would I respect that? Yeah, the only reason that Russia exists is because it's cold. That's it. Historically, they've constantly getting fucking decimated. But you know what happens? It's too cold there. That's it. It's a little too cold. And so it doesn't work out when people rightfully try to fuck that country. At least it's politically. Okay, they're politicians, right? That's it. It's just a chilly place. When it comes to attacking a country that's not even close to as big as them, they can't even fucking secure the bag. That's pathetic. The fuck do you think I give a shit? Why would I respect that country? Get the fuck out of here.
They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win...
So do it right now. Show us your talents. Let's see it happen.
When I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin...
Yeah, it wouldn't, because you would have just folded like a pussy and not given a shit. That's why.
After I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation.
What? Why would you even say that? That sounds like a dumb thing to think. What? That's your biggest argument?
Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead...
It's actually, Russia's taking a pretty hard L. So.
...to World War III. Don't kid
Doubtful.
yourself, David. We're playing with World War III. And
Doubtful.
We have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he up?
Pretty sure that he just decided that he's too old and it's time to move on, man. And good for him. Let him rest in peace.
President? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up.
Well, it's a good thing he's not running again. So he doesn't know he's alive, but then on the other hand, they threw him out like a dog. I'm liking the logic here, buddy.
Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
I think I'd love to guzzle Putin's cock and his balls. I'd love to lick his balls, and I'd love to lick his cock and eat his cum. And that's what I think about this topic there, guys. That's my answer. I heard Putin has a beautiful cock, not as good as mine.
Right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on
if she just said fuck Russia, I would cum my pants right now.
Support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
It's true, because he wishes he was against Joe Biden. I think that's the only shot that he had.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
Damn.
And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here.
We don't give up even when we're wrong, baby. Although I guess Trump's not either. So
met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery.
You know, it's so interesting. The way that Kamala Harris is owning Trump, it reminds me of it reminds me of the swagger of a young black teen. It's such an incredible thing to hear. A young black auntie, rather.
Javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided. Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Damn. She just fucking ate him up. 3 snaps and a crackle pop. Most cringe thing I've ever said, but that's okay. She really did fucking eat him up, though. All jokes aside.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please.
Okay.
He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually...
Well, yeah, but that's because he's losing and he thought he was going to do better.
You know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that.
Yep, so do we. And if they ever launched it, they'd be fucking decimated. Thank you for the $2 from Jado. Trump was right to be scared of this debate. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe...
Or he won't. He's not going to use them, so...
He hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something...
It's a lot of fear-mongering coming from our boy here, Mr. Trumpledoodle.
We don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they said...
Yeah, I mean, if he shoots a nuke off, that would be World War III. He's not going to do that because, frankly, that would decimate his country. And every single day, nukes become less and less threatening because we have fucking, GPS satellites that are sitting out there that are able to take down nukes before they get any proximity to us. So...
Sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid.
I love how they're the aggressors in this situation. Russia's the aggressor, but still somehow it's all her fault. That's incredible stuff. Wouldn't you call him a fucking loser for doing that? Why do you have any level of justification or any sympathy for this fucking piece of shit scumbag Putin? I don't get it.
Said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did.
Yeah, more like pooping.
And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible...
I mean, she was just kind of... I don't know if she really did anything. She just kind of existed.
...negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you.
And that must be her fault, yeah.
You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. Okay. And that is another one. When I
Yeah,
went
Putin, more like farting.
to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
Damn.
The reality is,
What are you, fucking him?
it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends.
Absolutely, 100%.
And not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about.
She called him gay. She fucking called him gay. Oh my God. I love that one. She just called him fucking gay. I cannot believe that she just she called Trump gay. That's awesome, dude. Fucking Jesus.
Democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people.
Yeah, more like, but if Kamala gets elected, she'll be commander-in-queef. Am I right, guys? Because she's a dirty girl. Very dirty girl.
People have a right
weird
to
thing for me to
rely
say.
on a president who understands.
It's got to be terrible to be a woman and somebody like talking about you like that. But at the same time, I thought it was funny.
The significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them
How the fuck
for
do we have so many
for
things that
the
we're fighting here?
benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate,
Okay.
and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice
Which, by the way, was Trump's back out plan.
President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million.
It was a shame, though, because like the second we got out of Afghanistan, the women were being oppressed again. They were no longer allowed to go into to go to like university. It was pretty fucked up, actually. You know, I mean, part of me like wishes we were still in there. It's terrible because we shouldn't have to be, but like, you know, somebody's got to do the right thing, right?
Dollars a day, we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place
Is this all real?
of storied significance.
You know, I saw something on that like she talked to Destiny or something to potentially like do this debate. I'm starting to wonder if this is true.
Significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this.
She is frying him. I don't know the context of this. Obviously, he's lied 100 times in this debate, and she hasn't so far. I wonder what it is. And he'll have his opportunity to respond and say, like, well, actually, I didn't do that. Or he won't because he has no defense.
Former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently...
Not only did he invite Taliban to Camp David, he was invited, but he invited the Taliban to Camp David on 9/11. Is that real?
...disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers.
Okay.
And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said,
thank you for $2 from Hawksicle. Hooray, Fat Destiny. Thank you, brother.
Why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had no...
If this story was real, it would be awesome, but I just don't think it is, because I don't think really anything that he says is real, so...
Nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was... We were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans...
I lost 5 seconds of my DPS window!
...behind them. We wouldn't have
balls
left,
in my cock,
We wouldn't
dude.
have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she...
Oh, that's a new one. He must have just added that to his resume of fucking things to say.
...and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you.
Oh, my God, Donald Trump, you just made me come.
I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President,
Yeah, I want to... Let's see what he says about her faking her fucking black set or whatever. I know that she code switches a little bit, right? We all kind of do that a little bit. We talk a little different depending on who we talk to. Like, for instance, I don't say racial slurs when I go out of the house. So anyway...
recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask...
I think even Fox News pressed him for this.
Ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking...
I don't know.
Guys, the racial slur I use is cracker. Just so you guys know, okay?
And all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
Well, what he actually said, and if you don't want to say it's fine, is that she was basically using this racial identity as like some kind of a weapon for the whatever. I personally don't really see it. I'm not really super concerned with that. You know, she seems black, Indian apparently. That's cool, man. Like, cool. Who gives a shit? But
that's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want.
Yep. Listen, this is a beautiful thing I heard one time. We're all pink on the inside. And that's a beautiful thing to hear, that we're all pink on the inside. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing to hear. Okay? It's true.
This kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember...
Thank you for the $5 from Antares, 1997. Myron's here, one from balding to budding. He's the new Benjamin Button. All right, this is the only one I'm reading. All right? It's the only one I'm reading this stream, bro.
Donald Trump started. He was land. He owned buildings, and he was
Thank you for $2 from Hawksicle. I have Haitian friends. They make really good tacos. Oh, incredible.
Investigated because He refused to rent property to black families.
Yeah,
Let's remember.
Well, you know,
This is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys.
and he didn't even help Kevin from that one movie. He wasn't like, "Oh, Kevin, your parents aren't there. You're home all alone. Let me help you out, bud." Didn't happen. Isn't that fucking
who
crazy?
were innocent, the Central Park 5, took out a full-page ad
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. That was a little before my years, man.
calling for their
But
execution.
apparently they were innocent. So that's terrible.
This is the same
Hey, thank you for the $10 from Too Fast for You. Yo, Papa, avid viewer since your first TikTok account. The Andre Lopez joke was misunderstood in a bad call on your TikTok's part. Thank you. Do you still talk to Brittany Simon at all? Loved your dynamic. Nah, we haven't chatted in a while.
individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
Oh, Obama? It's fucking crazy how people cope so hard, say he's not American. I miss Obama, bro. I miss any of these motherfuckers. I miss Bush at this point. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. But Obama was a cool guy. He sounded like a nice dude. He had a nice, smooth black voice. Is that racist to say? I don't care.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this,
True that, man.
want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all
Yeah, I want you to finger me, other Americans. Put your fingers in me.
the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse?
Obama was mid. What are you talking about, dude? Obama was decent. Obama did pretty good. He got us out of a pretty rough recession. Did a pretty decent job doing it. Lowered the annual federal deficit while recovering the economy. Biden really wasn't that bad either. He was just kind of there. He was kind of like just wet noodles. But he wasn't really bad. He was just kind of was. Thank you for the 6-month small guff from Crab Raguner. Long-time hater, first-time enjoyer. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks, brother.
About how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people. Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and
What
aspirations.
about their grandfather? Sexist much?
And want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris.
Especially since I can't even do it. Maybe short division, but long division? Enough is enough. Thank you for the $2 from Too Fast for You. Sorry for the long message. Love you, Mama God. Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. Or sister. Or sister. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country.
Just to be clear, no, it's not. It's not even an opinion. Biden is by no way, shape, or form divisive. He's boring. You can't be boring and divisive. Trump is divisive. And conservatives like that about him. They like that he's divisive because he'll say what's on his mind. He'll say the truth. But you don't get to pretend that Trump's not divisive when that's why you're voting for him. So Trump is the most divisive president. If you're a conservative or whatever and you like Trump, not only do you have a mental disability, but you also you like that about him. You think it's a justifiable divisiveness. So I don't know why he keeps saying nobody actually ever agrees that that Biden is more divisive because it's just by every objective metric false. Thank you again for the $5 on Terry's, but I'm not reading the message. I told you.
There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country.
Okay.
And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now.
Well, you did try to overthrow the government. She brought that up as well. When it comes to the race conversation, she's baiting a little bit with the Central Park 5 thing, probably. But yeah, she's brought up plenty of recent issues that you've engaged in.
One of the greatest economies in the history of the world. And I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil.
It's probably one where you just slash taxes for rich people and just really fuck us in the long term. That's a good economy, in my opinion. Thank you for the $2 from Disney Aviation Roller Coaster Enthusiast 2019. Obama would have wiped the floor at Trump. Probably. Well, I don't know if that's true. Trump has changed the landscape to be obnoxious and divisive, and I feel like people are still trying to, Kamala seems like the kind of person who will stoop to his level a little bit. And in this conversation, she has stooped to his level a little bit. She still has maintained her decorum, but she stooped to his level, and that's what we need. I don't know if Obama would be able to do that. But she's been wrestling in the mud a little bit, which is what we needed.
Policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. She's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden.
Why wouldn't she know the gentleman? What?
Worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad.
The economy is decent now, though, so that's good, at least.
And she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do. All right,
you're getting corny now. You're getting corny.
Instead of always disparaging the American people, I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses.
Oh, no. I'm sorry, the tonality, the way that she's saying it sounds like she's like, I have a plan that all these small businesses, it kind of reads as that I had a dream speech a little bit.
Plans.
Oh,
I want to talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
All right.
To pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development.
That's true. That's a tough year, man.
I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
They're starting to stun lock each other.
Turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
It's hard. Okay.
Okay.
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to respond
No,
to.
I'm sorry. We're going to
It's turning into a bloodbath.
We're going to move on, Vice President Harris.
I don't think you really have to. He's just saying the same dumb shit over and over again. So.
President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal.
Hey, well, you can't say that. He's treating them all this. They're treating them all the same. I'll tell you that. So.
And replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight.
Yeah, what's the much better? What the fuck is doing so much damage?
9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan? And can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care.
It's still implemented, so it was a good step in the right direction to try to give everybody health care. You did nothing about it. You just cut the requirement that everybody had some kind of health care. You cut the tax punishment for it. So, like, what is he going to do? You've had, like, he didn't do anything about it. He's like, I'm going to do something about it. He never did anything about it. He's got nothing. What do you have planned?
Always was. It's not very good today. And what I said that if
you didn't do anything about it for 4 years.
We come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do
what thing? Give us a fucking plan. He just keeps saying he's working on stuff. That means nothing to anybody.
Do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it.
Because it was better than what we had before. So what are you going to do?
They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare.
What plan? What's the better plan? You can't just say it would have been better without anything. Thank you for $2 from... I think I just fucked up. Oh, shit. Thank you so much for $2 from Hawksicle. Don't forget to update Battle Cats to 13.6. What the fuck is Battle Cats, bro? Oh, my God.
But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great.
Or do I... This is his justifier. Okay.
I let it rot. And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people...
Because it was better than anything you could have come up with.
The top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration.
Didn't you fire, like, a lot of them? What do you mean? How do you have so many good people? It seems like you're really bad at choosing people.
We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare.
What is the plan? What does he have for that?
Then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it.
I mean, a good plan would be some kind of like a Medicare for all system where you have a government-funded healthcare system. They obviously you're going to tax to fund, but then you can opt in based on your income. So if you make good income, you'd still pay into it. Additionally, that helps set some prices, and that would allow it to be competitive with the private market, and that would lower drug costs because the private market would be like, oh fuck, I guess we're gonna have to lower our shit or we're gonna lose our ability to sell. So
can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
Oh, well, that, as we all know, is not a plan.
I'm not president right now, but
what? Okay, you're not president, but you need to come up with a plan.
If we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts.
So if you can't come up with anything that's better and less expensive, what you're admitting is that Obamacare is actually really good. You're telling me we got 8 years and you still haven't come up with anything better and less expensive? So then you're telling me that it must have been a really good system.
And options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system.
I don't think we should get rid of private insurance. I think that we should have a government-run program that is able to compete with insurance. And if it doesn't do as well, it'll just get phased out. Or it might force these private companies to lower their costs. That's the best way forward, in my opinion.
2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business of...
Why does she keep talking about I truly don't think anybody gives a fuck about fracking. Who gives a shit about... I mean, like, I don't think that many people are, like, caring that much about fracking, to be absolutely honest with you, but maybe I'm wrong.
About taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged.
Damn. She's just low blowing him at this point. Hey, fuck it, right?
Being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
That is true.
I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare.
I honestly forgot all about that. I forgot how bad that was. It's fucking crazy.
To negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of...
Shit, when did that happen, bro? I mean, I don't really pay anything. I don't take insulin anymore. So, but damn.
Prescription medication for...
That's a very good thing, especially since insulin is not like difficult to produce, so...
Seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass as
President
prologue
Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It was...
Well, I think that she was saying that, like, you can't just get rid of it. You have to find something better to replace it with if you're going to replace it.
all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare.
So then come up with the solution, bro. Like, you've had so many years to have a fucking plan for this. If you actually cared, you would have.
Much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance.
How do you improve? Well, first of all, she just said that she capped insulin, so I don't know how you would. That's literally is private medical insurance improvement. But like, what are you going to do?
That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made...
Yeah, and so the way that you get private insurance to be less expensive is you create a competitor for private insurance. And if the government would create that competitor, private insurance would have to adjust, because if they didn't, then we would just go on the other insurance policy, right? So there you go.
Money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need.
Nope. That's like it would take longer, sure, if everybody had government insurance, I suppose. But at the again, just to be absolutely clear, if there was a private option or a public option that was less expensive, it would force the private options to cut their costs. So.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question...
Well, sure, we have to deal with climate change. I mean, it is a problem.
...to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask...
It doesn't take longer people to say that. Well, it's so funny because, like, sometimes at some places I go to, it takes a while. I imagine, like, here's the thing. It would take longer. And the reason it would take longer is because more people are insured, and their healthcare, it's not free, it's paid by the taxpayer, but it's less expensive, and so they're more likely to go. If you know that if you can go to the doctor without having to pay $5,000 or hundreds of dollars or however much, then you're more likely to use it. And so, like, yeah, there would be a different burden on the system. That doesn't make it necessarily a bad thing. But, like, I went to the emergency room like a month ago. I was having a problem. I thought I was having a heart attack. It was just acid reflux. No fucking joke. I wouldn't have done that if I didn't have insurance. So, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I have decent, I can afford my insurance. I don't have good insurance, but I can afford my insurance, right? If you could afford the insurance, right, you would probably use it more too. So would there be more of a burden? Sure, but it's okay that there's more of a burden. Like, that's okay. People using their insurance is not a bad thing, especially right at first. People are going to use it more right at first too, right? Because, like, they have it. They're like, oh shit, I can finally go to the fucking doctor. So there would be more lines, at least for a little while. And it would take a while for the system to adjust, but the system would adjust and it would be fine.
Anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up, You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
It didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going.
Well, yeah, automation, but nobody's answering the automation question. Yeah, of course, things are getting automated. Manufacturing jobs are going to disappear because they're automating. So how do we deal with that? No president's actually had a meaningful conversation about this, which is a problem. But like, yeah, we need to do something about technology displacing jobs, driving down wages. We're seeing it every day. We see it at McDonald's. We see it at fucking like different supermarkets around the country. There's so many different automated systems now.
They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by,
yeah, it's either automation or they can go get it cheaper somewhere. But again, we need to deal with automation conversation.
by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it.
I mean, this is decent. This is like the only thing he has that he's like strong on a little bit is these tariffs. Like, yeah, it would decentivize people leaving the United States and like doing industries in other countries if it was more expensive. I agree with that 100%. But that's like, and that's not a bad point. But is that like all you got? You know what I mean? Is that everything? I don't know.
It's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do
Okay, now we're just going into conspiracy territory.
it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why?
What?
Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Oh, did Hunter Biden receive $3.5 million? Okay, let's see what this is. I have no idea what he's talking about. Oh, apparently it's just not true. Okay, I wonder what the context. There's about the FBI laptop, blah, 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 more boring stuff. I mean, I just think conservatives love his cock and him doing cocaine and shit. Joe Biden's son had received $3.5 million. Billionaire widow. Trump quickly weaponized his blah, blah, blah. They turned to Hunter Biden, denied the allegation, but it has lived on, especially the right-wing media. Trump recently called it. It doesn't really seem that there's any validity to this. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate.
Another one. Another thing. Hey, Jack, how you doing, brother? Thank you for $5 from Jack Esposito. In my church, we have paintings of our Catholic fathers that were oppressed communists. The new communism is authoritarianism. Yeah, sure.
From Philly.
All right, the debate's still going on, guys. Look, some sexy Baywatch people. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I feel like this is longer than an hour and a half, personally. But let's continue, man. Fuck.
Has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris.
Oh, it's the closing. Thank fucking God. I'm burning out.
Begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country.
Sure.
One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past.
Okay.
And an attempt to take us backward. but we're not going back. And I do believe that
Back to the future, and then all of a sudden Doc appears. Oh.
American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
Hell yeah, brother.
I will be
Hell yeah, brother. We should have the most lethal. That's fucking badass. I love that.
a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms,
But we should only use it if we need to.
including the right of a woman to make decisions about
Boo.
her own body and not have her government tell her
kidding.
what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor,
That was kind of a hard line.
I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you
And she was just like, I'm not Trump, man. That's it. That's all we need.
and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why
Well, that's what he's been doing the whole time. What is he talking about?
hasn't she done it? She's been there
This is the same criticism that can be made for him. What do you mean?
for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about.
Well, they did create a significant amount of jobs, right? Again, a lot of those were bounce back jobs, but okay.
Why hasn't she done it? She should.
Well, why didn't you fix Obamacare? Why did you shoot down the proposition to fix the border? I'm not understanding that. What are the answers to those questions?
Leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it.
Didn't Germany shut down like a really big nuclear power plant because they were terrified of like something like it overloading or whatever? But that would never happen, and it was just like a fear, and it was actually a really stupid fucking decision.
We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation.
We're really not a failing nation.
We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being
Not really. Nope.
laughed at all over the world.
No, not at all.
All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me.
They're coming to see you? Who? Who's coming to see you? What is he talking about?
We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a
I mean, if anyone's laughing, it's because you became president. That's fucking barbaric, dude. It's crazy.
leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry.
A lot of fear mongering in this, huh?
I rebuilt our entire military.
He's acting like our military wasn't no strength before him.
She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe
the pullout could have been better. Sure. I mean, again, it was Trump's pullout plan, but you know, it is what it is.
toughest of all is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump.
I mean, your vice president must have been pretty bad by your standards if you got rid of him, no?
Thank you. And that is our ABC News
All
presidential
right.
debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And
I'm Papa Gut.
David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Wow, incredible stuff. Well, great video, man. Loved the debate. I can't wait to see where we're going as a country. Thank you for the $2 from Alpha. Thanks, Mr. That's great, Mr. Gut. Let's consume Galaxy, guys. Okay, thank you to $2 from Hawksicle. He rebuilt the military because he destroyed it. Incredible stuff. Okay.